Good morning everyone and welcome back to Assembly. It's Monday the 8th of June. I hope you've had a really good half-term break and you've settled back into the rhythm of the distance learning programme. Here I am in the library. I know for some of you it's your favourite place. I'm surrounded by books. I've just spotted a biography of Keith Richards. Books that I'm looking at, Roaring Boys, all about Jacobean drama, because of course women weren't allowed to portray women. They were all the parts were acted by men. What a terrible thought that must be. David Niven, famous old Stoic. This is a really good biography. And then one of my favourite artists, Victor Pasmore. His son John came to Stowe and is now a very accomplished and well-known photographer. 30,000 books, and some of the books date back to the Temple Grenville family. They were left here in 1923 when the school moved in. So absolutely no excuse for being bored in lockdown with so much reading material around me. First up today, I'm going to read out the Cheshire Awards. Well done to all of you for staying connected to your communities and for doing so much good for so many people. It really is appreciated. The staff have started this off by saying they'd like to thank the ICT support for all the help they're being given connecting with the SDLP and dealing with all the remote connectivity problems that they're having and getting resolved. Barnaby Pepiat in Chatham supported prospective medical students. He hosted a talk given by Old Stoic Nigel Rossiter. Nigel is the doctor for the GB Olympic team. Sam Morton in Winton gave a really well-researched presentation for the 5th form and 6th form members of the Business Society. That was on the future of transport. Ethan Collins in Temple hosted the Old Stoic writer and film producer Arvid David. He was broadcasting live from Los Angeles and talked about his life in film. Archie Atkinson in Chatham is helping a neighbour of his who's a paediatric oncologist working at the John Radcliffe Hospital, and Archie's making himself invaluable helping around the house and doing all sorts of DIY projects, painting and even baking. Well done to Hattie, Connie and Ned Goodridge. They cycled for nearly 12 hours. They covered more than 200 miles on a Peloton bicycle, going the equivalent of the distance from their home in Finmore to Plymouth, raising £1,200 for the Seafarers Mission charity. So well done to the whole Goodridge family. Philip Benedict has been looking after some elderly neighbours, doing their shopping, gardening and cleaning. And more recently, he helped a 93-year-old neighbour who had to be taken to hospital at 5:30 in the morning. And Philip was there, gave a quick diagnosis, correctly gave the diagnosis of a broken hip, called an ambulance, stayed with the patient, even when the patient was having an operation in hospital. So well done, Philip. Ollie de Winton in the Lower Sixth West stepped up at the last minute to give a careers talk on law and even presented an ad hoc contract case during the presentation. So thank you for that, Ollie. Ned Ellison, Lower Sixth Bruce, introduced and ran a careers talk on finance. So thank you for that, Ned. And well done to Chatham. The whole of Chatham has raised more than £3,000 for a school in Romania to keep it open during the COVID-19 pandemic. And then Bruce House have been busy. 3rd form Aaron Sobhan, he's been setting up a community radio station and he broadcasts every Saturday afternoon. And Xavier Treacher has raised £185 for the Navy Wings charity. David Barrett, Lower Sixth, signed up as a volunteer delivering medicine for the vulnerable, and Thor Major and Udo Ekpacham have also been delivering food to people who need it. And finally, Conrad Flint Wood has been volunteering to support an emergency food bank, organising food parcels for 1,900 vulnerable people. So to everyone on the list and everyone not on the list but who is volunteering, thank you so much for all your endeavours and for being so community spirited and helping people who need your help most. Now I'm going to turn to the commendations. I'm only going to read out the commendations that I've been given since half term, so the list is quite short, but well done in art to Lila Rothery, Sydney King, Tiffany Sol Scarpellini, Crispin Marshall Rowan, Jet West and Noah Crosby. For biology, commendations go to Poppy Goeman, Joshua Cowley, Emily Fuchs, Robin Vane Tempest Stewart, Rosie Grayson, Archie Atkinson and Sophia Southwick. In business we have Poppy Mowat, Varissa Chinovicharana, Lara Bott Wickens. Commendations in drama go to Helen Sharp, Joseph Barnett, Jemima Hammond, Oliver Gendon, Camille Thornton Izzard and Agatha White. And finally in history, commendations go to Tommy Cranmer, Archie Strong and Joseph Barnett, and history of art Millie Wood Wetherell. So thank you very much. Keep those commendations coming through because it shows how much good work is being done on the academic front during the lockdown. Now, I want to shift location and show you what is happening in another part of the building. So we are now going into the Temple Room and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what Stowe House Preservation Trust are getting up to. So come with me and we're off to the Temple Room. Temple Room, which used to be the state dining room, and I want to introduce you to two people. Both of them are called Nick. Nick, who is CEO of Stowe House Preservation Trust, and Nick, who is the site manager of the restoration project. So I'm going to start with Nick Morris, who in a previous life you looked after RAF logistics in Bosnia.
I did.
You are looking after logistics at Stowe. Which is more complicated?
They're very different. This is very focused, very project defined, very timescale specific. Bosnia was much more about building a coalition. I suppose there's an interesting parallel. We have a good coalition with the school. We work well, I hope, with the school and with the National Trust. So I don't need to form that community of interest. Yeah. Whereas here we're very much more focused on getting a job done within a specific timescale so that we hand this room back to you in September, or at least in December. We'll have the floor done by September, but in December the room comes back to the school.
Excellent. I look forward to seeing it fully restored. Now, Old Stoics before 1989 would know this room as the Temple House Room. Yes. So 1923 to 1989 it was the Temple House Room, and we have the first 12 heads of houses inscribed up on the fireplace. What was it before 1923? I said it was the state drawing room. Can you tell us about the drawing room and why it's such an important room in the house?
Yes, so the drawing room was the withdrawing room, a room set aside for peaceful activities. This room is described as having a particularly sunny, southerly aspect. In architectural terms, it is really significant because it is the pair of the music room. So the two rooms are identical. The decorative schemes are very different. We don't have the decorative scheme for the wall. All we have is two watercolours to show what the room looked like. The one that we are adopting as our approach for the restoration is by a lady called Betsy Fremantle, who was married to Captain Thomas Fremantle, one of Nelson's captains at Trafalgar. And she sketched this room in about 1805. It is her scheme that we're going back to because that's consistent with the design intent that Vincenzo Valdre had when he designed this room and the music room opposite. So transitioning from the music room through the marble saloon into this room, and then beyond into the state dining room, will give us a clear view of Valdré's design intent for the house, and then move through some slightly later work that was done in the dining room.
So let's talk about Valdré, because he is responsible for the music room and he's responsible for the design. He didn't actually make the nereids and the various decorations here. That was somebody else, was it James Novel? So tell us about the iconography. What are we looking at? Who were the nereids?
The nereids were the daughters of
Nereus and Doris. And there were 50 of them. And they were all absolutely beautiful.
So that's a good starting point for what we want to achieve with the restoration, is to replicate that beauty. There are other symbols in the room. There are eagles in the corner panels. There are various designs, but all quite delicate design, quite refined. And that is what we're trying to replicate. What is interesting is that we found behind the iconography that this ceiling is not this creamy colour we see it now.
Yeah.
There are actually 4 shades of pink, ranging from the outside corner panels through into the centre. So one of the challenges we face is to get those colours exactly right, or as close as we can. We're also looking at whether the symbolism is such that the silver gilt, which we know was applied in the 1960s, whether that was part of the original design intent, as you've suggested, to show a shimmering sea, the Aegean with the nereids, and whether perhaps the pink represented coral, and then what do we do with the walls is another story. But there is plenty in this with which we can engage visitors.
And is it true that the school in 1965 didn't quite have enough money to use silver, and instead they've used aluminium paint? Is that true, or is that a bit of fake news?
Anecdotally, that is what we understand. It's a lovely story. I don't know we'll ever know. We haven't actually tracked down the old Stoics who were here when this was repainted. It does look like aluminium paint, but interestingly, under the aluminium there is gold in some of the panels, and the eagle panels in the corner actually do have white gold on a pale coloured background, which would be consistent with them having been silver right from the start.
That's interesting. Now, what happened to the chandelier? Because we've got the Roman imperial eagles, and then we've got this rather sinister fasces, which is the bound rod, which is a Roman symbol of power, which I expect was put there when the school started to show head magisterial authority. Where's the chandelier?
Well, we don't need to show head magisterial authority anymore because it's clearly here. The chandelier we don't know.
A fiver is in the post.
Unlike the music room, where we had records of the chandelier, and we knew the chandelier in there had moved into the blue room when it was brought back in the 19th century, we have no record of a chandelier in here. Lighting is one of those really delicate issues that we'll have to deal with. Elsewhere in the house we've installed Cornice Lighting. Cornice Lighting is brilliant because it just uplights the ceiling and shows all the decorations. So North Hall Music Room have that to good effect. We will install a Cornice light in here. If we had evidence for the chandelier, then obviously we would try to replicate that again.
Now, I've just noticed the capitals of the columns are rather unusual, aren't they? Because they are Corinthian, but they're a different style, aren't they? They're more
half leaves.
They're half leaves. They're more Attic. They're more Greek than Roman. Why on earth did they change the design?
I think there is a whole dissertation in this, which Michael Bevington has studied. I think the suggestion is that this is more of a nod to Greek culture away from the Roman culture. But again, it shows that the Temple Grenvilles, and certainly the Marquis of Buckingham, when he commissioned this room, really thought about the decoration. What are the hidden messages? I think that's one of the beauties of stone, to be honest. We have so many yet to discover.
Now, one of the treasures that's missing from this room is the marble fireplace.
Yes.
And it's at the moment in the Bank Santander in Madrid.
In Santander itself.
In Santander.
Yeah.
And it's been there since 1957.
Yes.
So have you been to the bank to say, can we have our fireplace back?
Yes. We asked the bank if we could have it back. They are actually refurbishing their offices, and there seemed to be a good chance that they would allow it to come back to Stowe. That is no longer the case. What we do have, though, is a very detailed scan so that we can have that reproduced. I'm negotiating with a company at the moment to produce a copy of the original chimney piece, which has a bacchic frieze. And again, one starts to worry whether there are mixed metaphors in here now, but it has a bacchic frieze across the top.
And that was Egyptian, wasn't it? It was something that the Marcus brought back from his grand tour.
Brought back from his grand tour, yes.
Yeah, so 1774.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's still intact.
That is, yes.
Wonderful. So we're going to bring that back.
So one of the challenges for Nick and his team now is going to be taking this one out, keeping it intact. We'll find someone to put it in the school, and then we will, I'll need, the logistics again come into it, I'll need to make sure that we can have the copy made in time to supply it to Messenger.
Well, I think the plaque with the 12 heads of houses gets pride of place in Temple Common Room, and I'm sure we can find a place for the fireplace. Now, Nick, you've been taking up the floorboards. Tell us about some interesting discoveries you've made.
We found a lot more of the plugging in between the joists
Yeah.
than we thought was going to be in there.
Right. So that looks to me like old-fashioned lime mortar.
That's it, yeah.
It's in pretty good condition,
It
isn't
is,
it?
it is. I think it's about 95% of the room complete still.
Yeah. And then tell us about some of the things that you found, some of the
Very
letters.
badly worn floorboards.
Yeah.
And then all sorts of little bits and pieces from over the years.
Is there anything as headmaster that I should be worried about that you've
No,
found?
definitely not.
So no contraband hidden under the floorboards.
And the thin boards have been taken away. Luckily.
So
We found all sorts of little bits and pieces.
So these are some of the, so we've got some shoe shine, we've got some letters, a letter here from 1964, which was about a decade before I was born. We've got some twiglets, books, we've got a Latin, trigonometry, my favourite subject. I can see that this Stoic didn't enjoy trigonometry much. There's a Latin primer, but all sorts of things. Now show us the floorboards, because we've got the original dowels, and the floor's been worn right down to the dowels.
Yeah. The dowel, and you can see that from there, would be right in the centre of the board. And if you can see from there, they've actually worn right the way through and then just fallen away.
And what are we going to do with the original floorboards? We got plans to auction them off.
We'll transport them to a store for Nick.
One of the joys of this job, I had spent this morning buying a storage container.
Wonderful.
So we'll store them on site. The conservation officer wants us to use boards we can salvage for repairs elsewhere in the house. But I am wondering whether there are some that we can cut into small pieces of souvenirs. We're still some way behind our fundraising target. We've got another big floor in the dining room. So potentially we could sell small souvenirs. And also, if people would like to bid for floorboards, I think there will be some we'll be able to sell.
Right, so you can take a piece of Stowe home with you. You can even lay your own kitchen floor with our floorboards. Before we leave, this was described in 1845 when Queen Victoria visited as one of the best appointed rooms in the whole of the country. And there were 52 paintings, and some of them were absolute masterpieces. Can you just tell us a little bit about we have Rubens here,
Poussins, there was a Van Gogh. A lot of them have been traced to museums. 2 or 3 are in the Wallace collection in London. And the Wallace collection is worth a visit to see some of the artefacts that came out of Stowe. The Ghoul cabinet, these paintings.
Hexagonal table as well.
The hexagonal table. The state bed, of course, is in the Leverhulme Gallery up in Port Sunlight. But all of these can be traced, and we discounted that scheme because it was just too bright and garish and not typical of this room in its heyday. So attractive though the scheme was when Queen Victoria was here, we've moved away from it. Although we are bringing.
So this will be much more appealing to the Georgian taste when it's restored than the heavy Victoriana.
Yes, and the practical issue, we couldn't acquire those 52 old masters again, or even have copies of them made. And would that be consistent with the school dining room? We think what we're doing here is producing an elegant recreation of the Georgian scheme, and it will serve the school into its next centenary, next 100 years, we hope.
Thank you so much to both Nicks, and thank you very much for listening to Assembly. Have a great week, and wait and see where we'll be next week. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.